What's up, guys? We are live in episode 5 of Luna Podcast. I do want to apologize because I did take a good minute to release some new episodes. I've just been busy with life, and you guys know how it is. Just dealing with a bunch of stuff in my businesses, life in general. Um, and it honestly caught up with me, and I do apologize. I know a lot of guys have been asking me, when am I going to release a new episode? I do appreciate you guys listening and actually being involved and, being a part of this, because I am here to give my best advice and, teach you guys as much as I possibly can with the knowledge that I have. And today's episode is going to be dealing with narcissist. It's a topic that a lot of people, they love to throw around. Oh, this person's a narcissist, that person's a narcissist. But honestly, I feel like we all have a trait of being a narcissist. When it gets bad, it's whenever you're using that part of narcissism to your own advantage, to where it's hurting other people, to where these individuals, they do not know that they're actually causing harm. They're actually gaslighting people, they're using people, and they're just going through life, jumping from person to person, getting what they want. And this is what I'm going to explain all of them in detail because there's many different types of narcissists. So in this episode, I do want to talk how to be aware about these type of narcissists and how to deal with it and how not to deal with it. How to walk away if that is the case, that you are dealing with somebody that has these traits. And my best advice from the beginning will be just walk away. Do not deal with it. It's not worth the headaches. It's not worth the heartbreak. It's not worth the chaos. It's a bunch of headaches that you just do not want to deal with. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people, they tend to stay with these narcissists. They do not know how to move forward. And I guess they do not know what they're dealing with. They're caught up in loving this person, creating this image of them that they should still be with them. And the reason why a lot of people end up being heartbroken is because they do not see these signs early on. And the next thing you know, years pass by and you're stuck with this narcissist and a bunch of headaches. A lot of obstacles that really shouldn't even be happening, because a healthy relationship with anybody, friends, marriage, boyfriend, girlfriend, it should all be healthy. It shouldn't be in a position to where it's causing you pain, it's causing you a lot of misery. You should never be at that point. And if you are, you might be dealing with a narcissist. And like I said, these people just want to take from you. And they're going to keep taking from you because they do not see anything wrong with themselves. So moving along, I just want to talk about this research actually that got done. It was from the Family Institute at Northwestern University by Melissa Prusco. She's a licensed therapist, and she was able to dive down and actually analyze these types of narcissists and what they all do, what to look for. And I'm going to read them individually, and then I'm just going to give my point of view on it because whenever I read them, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to relate with the stuff that you guys have probably experienced. So the very first one, I think this is one of the most popular ones. It's the covert vulnerable narcissist. This type of narcissist is characterized by a lack of empathy, entitlement, hypersensitivity, passive aggressive behavior, resentment, insecurity, low levels of self-esteem, and higher levels of depression. Contempt is pervasive and prominent in these individuals. These individuals tend to exhibit behaviors consistent with sociopathy. I mean, if that doesn't tell you enough, there's always that one person that we're like, man, that person is fucking crazy, because I'm pretty sure they were dealing with something mental, and they reflected their traumas and their narcissism and all that baggage that they have onto others. Whenever you try to communicate with them and be like, hey, babe, this bothers me. And this person's going to be like, yeah, babe, I'm going to correct myself. I'm going to do better. Um, but, you've heard this story over and over in relationships that you've probably been in, and this person never changes. It's a person that just stays the same. And this person tends to be aggressive whenever they don't get their way. So like if you remind them and be like, hey, I told you to do this, to change this, they're gonna flip it on you and gaslight you. And these type of people are like the snakes in the narcissism world. These are the ones that will turn people on you. If they feel like they're getting judged by somebody, they're gonna try to wanna turn you against them as well, even if they're your own friends or even family. They're very hypersensitive, and they see everybody almost as a threat because they just want to have you to themselves. So when that happens, you have to understand that these narcissists could become very dangerous, because these narcissists always use words, they use manipulation strategies with you and other people, just for their own advantage. And even when these individuals, they talk to other people, when they talk to other people, they almost feel very hostile. They have what they call very thin skin, and they're easily triggered. They're easily, just angry. These are people that don't have that stoic part of them to be able to control those emotions. I'm pretty sure you guys have seen people like that where they're like, man, that person is always angry. That person's always, just having attitude, they're pissed off at the world. This is what this person is. It's a very dangerous one, because whenever you're not with them and you're against them, they're going to go full force against you. So you're dealing with this as a relationship. If you break up with this person, they're not going to break up with you. They're going to keep trying to, in a way, turn everybody against you, your own friends, family, because they feel entitled. These people feel very entitled. And the reason that this happens is because this might happen at childhood. And this happens whenever they're, in their younger years. A child exposed to chronic neglect and invalidation is going to have been exposed to more hostile motivations and become more attuned to combing their environment for hostile threats. So the best way I could explain this one, so maybe you're able to pick this one up early, ask about their childhood, because these type of narcissists, they were neglected as childhood, even if they had the mother and the father. But if they were neglected at a very young age, they develop more of a defense mechanism in their life, and it just motivates them to be guarded, so it's them against the world. And these type of people obviously turn into not so healthy human beings. It causes other issues down the line as well. Not just this, turning them into a narcissist, but it's why it's so important to give your children attention, because if not, it creates this psyche in their mind that they're alone, and it's going to be them against the world, because nobody's going to validate them. And then once they're older, they're going to try to find that validation in many, many very unhealthy ways. So just understand that this one is a very common one. and popular just because they're the ones that are snakes, and we all fucking know a snake. There's always one in people that we've walked away from, the colors that eventually come out. We're like, fuck, man, that person was a fucking snake. So, with that being said, move on to the next one. So, this one is the communal narcissist. Are wholly engaged in the community and post everything online about their pursuits in changing the world. Communal narcissists may feature frequent posts on their social media or personal website showing their interaction with those less fortunate and drawing attention to their charitable deeds with hashtags. So that's just a quick little explanation that this therapist put down. And these people are more of wanting attention. The world revolves around them. And I'm pretty sure we all know a person like that. This often creates a lot of conflict in relationships because they act a certain way to the world. They act so loving, so charming. It could be anything. But behind closed doors with their partner, they are somebody else. And this is like having two masks. One mask is for the public to see, and then the other mask is their real version of who they are. And these people, obviously they want validation from the world, and they lack a lot of empathy because they don't understand that they're hurting their own relationship by not being authentic the whole time. If they were that loving the way that they show the world and putting that same energy into their own relationship, imagine how much that relationship would actually work. These are just what they call the two-face, and like I said, it creates a lot of conflict because the partner ends up being confused. It's like, what the fuck? Like you're saying that you do all this, but you can't do shit for me. It's kind of one of those situations. So the next one is neglectful narcissist. These individuals do not engage with anyone unless they want something from them. It's all for their own convenience. These are the ones that are going to gaslight you the most. I gave you a little example earlier, and these are people that will say that they will change, and they're only going to give you a little crumb of the cookie. They're just going to give you enough just for you to stay. But as the weeks, months, years pass by, it's going to be the same routine. They do not change fully. They give you just enough, and then they go back to who they were. It's like a graph. Think of it like a graph. It just goes up and then it goes back down. But when it goes back up, it's going lower as you're going back down. They give you that energy of just enough validation to you to keep you there. It's crazy. It's a fucking psyche. It's truly insane how these people are able to function this way because they know that they're doing this. In their minds, they're probably thinking, they're like, oh, I don't want to lose this person because I'm using them. I'm using them to my own advantage, for my own convenience. So they're going to do everything in their power to keep you there. If it's that important for them, they're going to do their damnedest to fucking keep you there. At the cost of your own heart. They're going to break your heart. These are people that will cheat. They'll be snakes. The whole fucking list. But whenever they need you back, they're going to convince you and they're going to play this beautiful story. They're going to be like, yes, babe, I'm going to change. And they're going to change for like maybe 2 weeks. But that fourth week, they're going to be back to, being who they are. And then whenever you expose them during that time, they're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, babe. I'll do better. But as those moments happen, they I guess they only get worse. They just, from there, it's just a downhill. The uphill is whenever you guys actually sit down with a therapist or somebody, like a third party, a mediator, that is actually trying to convince you guys to save the relationship. That's the high right there. That's when you have hope that this relationship is going to work. But the narcissist in the back of the mind is like, fuck this. I'm just here, to please them temporarily, but I'm going to go back to my own shit in a month, because that's the way it happens. They lack so much empathy because they do not see how much effort you're putting in to actually make the relationship work. And they only have one intent with you, is to use you in their own convenience, in their own way, whatever it could be. And their connections are not very genuine because they're honestly just lying the whole time. So this is the one that I think myself creates a trauma bond, because this is the one that gives you a cookie crumb, just gives you just enough to bring you back. And from there, it's just downhill. Like I said, it's like a graph. It goes up, down, up, down. And it's just not always steady, at least. Steady, a relationship is always up and down, yes. But with the narcissist, this type of narcissist, it's a graph of going up and down, but in a way down. It's not going up, if that makes sense. So just be careful, guys, because I think this is the one that gets us all. I've been my own, I guess I don't want to call myself a victim, but I've been a part of that. I've been a part of this type of fuckery, and we give our all to this type of person, hoping that they're going to change. We go looking for the therapist. We're the ones looking for the therapist because we're the ones that want to make the relationship work, not them. And it sucks, because we end up giving so much. And they gave us a little fucking crumb. But it's crazy how that little crumb is enough for us to stay. Whenever we're giving 100% and they're just giving us 25%, maybe even less than that. But why is it that we stay? That's a question that I think we should all ask ourselves. Is why is it that we stay? We're wanting to make the relationship work, giving so much more than they are. But we're still in that relationship. But why? How much more misery do you want to put yourself through? And as bad as it hurt me, walking away from some relationships in the past, dealing with this same situation, yeah, it's painful. But guess what? I ended up being happier in the long run because I do not miss the headaches. I do not miss the confusion. And I have a son myself, and I don't want to be dealing with this shit. And then me reflecting my moods, around him like that. Like, I want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. But if you're with somebody knowingly that they're not going to change, you've given them so many tries and so many chances, that's when you have to walk away. I talked about it before in one of my episodes. And it's dealing with something like this too. You have to learn how to walk away. Because how many more years are you going to waste, or months, with this person when you could have easily left and had a beautiful life with somebody or by yourself? Why keep going in those motions? Because it's only going to cause misery. It's only going to make you a better person. It's going to make you such a better person. You're going to have a whole different outlook towards the world. And it's something that's just not healthy. You have to learn how to love yourself. At that point, it's your self-love, self-respect, honestly. So, you guys could think about that one, because fuck, that's the one that I think breaks the most hearts. Because it's manipulation, it's gaslighting that gets us. I've been a part of it, and it's not fun. It's not a life that we should live. Especially if we're doing our best to be honest with that person and actually try to be a better human being for each other. So the next one, I do not know how to spell this word. I'm just gonna say it. Don't make fun of me, but it's benign. It's Benign, narcissist. This is part of a list of this therapists that make this study. These type of narcissists often exhibit a lack of empathy, entitlement, and grandiosity. However, others experience their lack of empathy as being clueless, their entitlement as being clumsy, and their grandiosity is being childlike. These are the individuals that only talk about themselves or work to make your story or what you are saying about them. They have a superficial immaturity and often resemble adolescents who are preoccupied with caring what others think about them, obsessively follow social media and likes, are thoughtless when they speak, are often dismissing their behaviors as someone who does not have a filter. So I just read a little bit of it. I don't want to read all of it, I'm just going to summarize it once I read part of it. I don't want to bore you guys, but I hope that made sense, what this doctor is actually talking about, because I think we all know this type of person. It's kind of comparing it to the one I just talked about before, the communal narcissist. They're very entitled. It's all about them. Social media, it's all about the likes, it's all about the followings, which creates a very childlike behavior. These type of people, they're very immature when it comes down to communicating, and they base off their life off of a fucking reality show. They get influenced very easily by TV shows, music, friends, anybody. It could just be anybody because of that childlike mentality. It's very easy to influence a child, but it's not really easy to influence a very mature adult. Let that make sense. And this is what happens with this type of narcissist. I can't say the fucking word. I don't know why I can't. It's benign narcissist. But I do understand the definition of it, obviously. And, explaining it all makes sense because these type of narcissists are very dangerous to the world. They're very childlike. Therapy could easily help that out. But the issue with this is that if it's not corrected early on and it carries on through life, this type of individual is going to pick up bad habits. Because they could be loving people. They could just, it's a very hard title of narcissist, I guess, to analyze, because this falls into other type of narcissists that we all know, like the ones I just talked about prior. I'm trying to explain it as best as I can from stuff that I know and stuff that I've read. But I just feel like this person could go down the wrong path easily, especially their influence. Like I said, it's hard to influence a mature adult, but it's very easy to influence a child, So if this happens with a grown adult, imagine what they're going to get influenced into, especially if they think that the world revolves around them. This could be very dangerous for the relationship down the line. So just be aware about that one too. And, whenever you come up to a person and you're trying to get to know them, and especially if you have high hopes about this person, always ask them about their childhood. I think that's one of the most premier things to do, because that's going to give you answers as to what you're going to have to deal with. Because we all come with baggage. We all do. We all have our certain type of traumas. And most of the time, it's at a younger age that we endure, these traumas. And whenever they express that something bad happened to them early in their life, it's up to you to ask them and be like, what, have you worked on those traumas? Have you done therapy? Have you went and seek for help? If the answer is yes, then, you have a person that's willing to change. But if they say no, walk away. That's the clearest answer that I could give you, because it's not your duty to fix somebody else. It's not your duty to put yourself in a position and get attached to somebody that's broken, that hasn't fixed themselves fully to be able to give you the best version of who they are. It's not your job, because it's only going to be a headache. You're going to be babysitting. You're only going to be putting yourself in a rut with this person because they haven't done the work to actually change into a better person. So I think this type of narcissist could be easily spotted. Um, I guess just looking at their social media, depending on how they handle their social media. Um, if they're not any type of influencer, if they're not working with the company that they're getting paid for, and they're putting stuff out there just, for attention, and it looks like, it's clear attention that they're getting, that's a bad sign. You know, I will talk in some other episodes about the social media and what it does to the psyche of people, because I've been a part of it. I will be the first one to admit how easily you could get caught up into social media, the attention, the likes, the follows. But like I said, if you don't do anything to fix it, you're only going to do wrong to the world. You're not going to, make the world better. You're only going to take from the world. Like I said, I think all narcissists, their main thing is just to take. And this type of narcissist takes from social media, from other people. And even when it comes down to actually communicating, they're very childish. And it's very hard to communicate with these type of people because they live in this fantasy world. And if they watch reality shows, I hate saying it, a lot of women are going to fucking come at me for this one, but there's nothing wrong with it. But if it easily influences your life, then something's wrong. Because I've seen where people, they talk about stuff that's happening in these reality shows. And then I start watching what they're doing on their social media, what, just the way that they're carrying themselves, where it's obvious that these shows are influencing them. And it could even happen with music. I think music could influence a lot of people in the wrong way as well. It's all about being mentally strong, honestly. You can watch whatever the fuck you want. You can listen to whatever you want. But if you're not right mentally, if you're listening to music that's just not good and you're in a bad place, I mean, it could take you down a wrong path. Same with reality shows. For good example, just bear with me. If you're going through a tough patch in your relationship, in your marriage, or being boyfriend, girlfriend, doesn't matter. You're going through a rough patch and you're watching these shows or these movies that are on Netflix where the woman steps out of the marriage, which has been very common in these movies that are coming out. It hasn't been the other way around as much, where the guy steps out. It's usually the woman. And you don't think that that's going to influence many women these days? If they're not right mentally, of how easily that could influence you at the wrong time. That's what I said right now. You have to be mentally strong. If you're putting your mind into receiving these sounds and voices and the vision of what you're seeing, daily, it's going to influence you in a certain way. It really is. And that's why I wanted to give you guys an example. Before you guys attack me and tell me, oh, fucking Edgar's saying that you can't watch reality shows and listen to a certain type of music. Well, you really can if you're not in a good position. Because the way that the devil attacks us is through our eyes and our ears. And guess what? If you're going through a rough patch, and like I said, you watch these things, guess what? The devil is going to make his way in. And many people, they don't even realize it. They like the high of watching this. And then next thing you know, you're going through a fucking divorce, a fucking nasty divorce, and you're going through misery. You know why? Because you were not able to acknowledge what you're going through mentally and acknowledge that you have to be more mentally stronger. So, enough with that, because this subject's about narcissism. I know I just go off the subject a little bit, but I just wanted to explain it in detail as to how it affects people and how it actually ruins relationships and how I've seen it do that. So before we continue, guys, I am gonna go refill my glass of whiskey. I'm having a nice glass of whiskey right now just to enjoy the night, and I'll talk to you guys. But I'll be right back. I'm gonna let the ad run and we will continue. This episode is sponsored by Luna Tattoo and Luna Smoke Shop Mobile. For anybody that is listening for the first time and don't know too much about my backstory, but I am a tattoo artist. I've been in the industry for over 10 years. I specialize in color realism and black and gray realism. I'm able to achieve a lot of different styles that deal with color and black and gray. So if you guys need some work, you guys could go on lunatattoos.com. You guys will be able to fill out a form, and you guys could be very descriptive of what you guys want. And my assistant will actually be the one that's going to be responding to you guys. So if you guys need some work, let me know. Luna Smoke Shop Mobile. We are elevating this business to go to the next level here in El Paso, Texas. We're creating a website where you could easily jump in there and order what you need from a smoke shop delivered to your house. Nobody in El Paso is doing this. And I'm elevating this to give you guys the best experience and truly making it more of a convenience for you guys. And it's something that's going to be very enjoyable for everybody that's here in El Paso, Texas. So be on the lookout. It's coming soon. That's something that me and my marketing team are working on right now as we speak. It is a lot of work. It's a lot of things to put into the website, but this will come soon. The Smoke Shop Mobile is something that is very new to the city, and I'm truly trying to give everybody a new experience outside of what they're used to walking into a smoke shop. Instead, the smoke shop is going to come to you. So be on the lookout. You guys could go on Instagram and find the business under Luna Smoke Shop and Luna Smoke Mobile. These are the two pages where I put everything out, especially with the Luna Smoke Mobile. I'm able to show you guys where I'm at, where I'm parked at. So if you guys are in the area, you guys could just easily hit me up and I'll be there. Thank you guys all for the support and enjoy the rest of this episode. All right, guys, we are back. I got my glass of whiskey refilled. I wish I had a cigar right now, but I'm not about to smoke inside my house because that would stink up the whole house. So I wouldn't want that smell the whole time. But anywho, let's continue. So the next narcissist, it's clear as day. The title is entitled Narcissist. I think I don't even have to even read the definition of it. I think we all know what these people are. It's crazy how all these are very alike. These are very alike to the ones that I just talked about. It's all about them, revolves around them, and yeah, it's just clearly all about them, and they don't care about how they inflict what they say onto others. I think going through the motions of life and the experiences that I've had, I think this is one of the worst ones to have, because you're not going to be able to communicate with them in a healthy manner, because it's always going to be about pleasing them. It's never about you. If you have an issue or something, it sucks because it's always going to be about them. In a relationship, how is that going to work? When the relationship is only one-sided and you're not able to maneuver to getting your side of your validation that's needed through the other person. So these type of narcissists, I think, are easy to spot, only because If you're able to truly understand their childhood, um, and see how they were raised, you'll kind of know. Not everybody is the same. This doesn't go for all cases, but these narcissists end up being this way because they were spoiled as a child, as a kid, and whenever that happens, they think that everything belongs to them. They feel entitled, and everything revolves around them. And that's why I say whenever you're trying to meet somebody new, this is very important to do very early on. Is just to ask them. It's like, how was your childhood? Because honestly, all your answers are going to be there for any type of situation. It doesn't even have to be about narcissism. It could be about so many different situations that if you want answers of that person, ask them about their childhood. Because honestly, you'll get a lot of answers if you ask them that. You'll have a whole picture to see if you're going to want to put up with it, or if you see that they've actually maneuvered, through those traumas and those trials, and whatever they went through, they worked on it, then maybe give them a chance. But like I said before, if they haven't, or maybe you see bad signs, just walk away, man. A lot of people, they they give people the benefit of the doubt too much. It might be attraction. They'd be like, fuck, man, I haven't been with this type of attractive person ever before. So guess what they do? They're gonna put up with it. And it sucks. This is why you have to understand your own self-worth. A person that knows their own self-worth is not gonna put up with anything. They're gonna know what they want in life. Doesn't matter how you look, how much money you have, or what you have to offer. But a person that truly loves themselves, they're gonna truly know that they're not gonna put themselves in a situation that's just gonna cause them harm. Especially with the person that like this, that's very entitled. Because at that point, say if this person is so attractive, you think that they're a fucking 10, whatever the fuck, you've never been with somebody so attractive, but because they're so entitled, you're gonna fall into their own needs always. And what is that gonna cause to you? You're gonna be in misery, you're gonna be confused, you're gonna just feel like you're just catering to their needs always. But whenever you need something from them, they're gonna be gone. They're nowhere to be found. So just be careful, guys, because like the other episodes that I'm going to be talking about, and the ones that I've talked about previous, I do talk about the dynamics, about what happens in relationships, and if you miss the red flags and all these shit, because obviously everything I'm talking about right now is all red flags. The type of narcissist that these people could be. It's about raising that flag in your head and be like, you know what, this fucking person might have these traits and maybe I shouldn't continue with them. And even if you have been in a relationship and you're now finding out these traits about a person or a potential narcissist that you're dealing with, you have a decision to make. I'm not telling you what to do, but like I said, how many more years do you want to waste? Life is too fucking short. Life is too fucking short to be putting up with people like this. Life is beautiful. You make it as beautiful as you want, but you could also make it as miserable as you want. Remember that. You have to truly dig down inside your heart and be like, you know what? I deserve more. I know the type of person I am. And I know that there's somebody out there that's going to give me what I need because I'm willing to give that too. So just keep that in mind. So this last one on this research, it's called generational cultural type of narcissist. I'm just gonna read what it says here. I'm gonna try to just summarize it as best as possible. This type of narcissist is one of the most difficult to describe. Even in the consideration of it being a form of narcissism, Dr. Durzula, it's a weird name, even cautious that she is not completely convinced that narcissism will be accurate here due to the universality of histories. Did I say that right? Universality. I don't even fucking know. I guess the background of narcissism. I guess the analyzation of it. I guess why I don't know why they use those big fucking words, but you guys catch the drift. So I think by what I'm reading here is a person that just changes with the times, and they're turning. I guess this is like a new type of fucking narcissism. So whatever the culture is happening right now, like they're just gonna be that person. It goes back to the narcissism that gets easily influenced. If there's trends and it's a toxic one, they're gonna fucking do it. And guess what? I guess that falls into narcissism because that is toxic. I hate, honestly, I hate seeing the stuff that I do on social media sometimes. I'm like, fuck, man, I wish that we would just be back in fucking 1950s, 1940s, before anybody had any type of, I guess, open communication and yeah, I guess just the stuff that you see on TV, on your phone, because back then it was more simple. Now you just see all this fucking fuckery on social media, and it just makes you question. It's like, man, is anybody ever ready to be in a relationship? Are all these cultural, generational narcissists now? Is that what they're calling it now? I mean, by this study, this is what it's saying. And I guess it's a new study on it because, and it makes sense, because obviously it is destroying the culture of dating nowadays. People that fall into the new trends, the music, the shows, like I talked about it before. I'm gonna keep preaching it because fuck, I've seen people go downhill because of it. And I think it's just a lack of mental strength. And it sucks because this falls under a bad childhood, a complicated one. It all falls into the childhood time of how that person was raised. Yeah, because a lot of the traumas that you build early, you'll carry on through the rest of your life. And if you don't change them, or if you don't even know what they are, and you're doing this type of behavior, and you're hurting people, fuck, you might be able to talk to a therapist and see what's up because this is how people are hurting other people because they're not realizing that they're doing it. Most of them, like I think the majority know what the fuck they're doing. That's why they're motivated by doing this. But I just think it's a complicated situation with narcissists. This being the last one, I just want to summarize it. I honestly think that narcissist is a very hard thing to diagnose. I think even if somebody goes to a therapist, they're not going to be able to, and I guess, diagnose them and analyze who they are as a person because the motive of a narcissist is to lie, manipulate, and gaslight. So how the fuck is a therapist gonna diagnose that? Like, I think to diagnose a narcissist is the most extreme, hardest thing to not diagnose, honestly. Nobody's gonna go to a therapist and be honest, especially like if you're a fucking narcissist. That's the motive of a narcissist now, to be honest. And how will they ever get help if they're living life this way always? And I've even seen it in many other studies where therapists and licensed doctors and everybody, like, it's hard to get to the root of a true narcissist because, or try to diagnose them because fucking narcissists lie. So you think that they're not gonna lie to the therapist or manipulate them or gaslight them so that way they don't seem that bad? One thing about narcissists is that they lack accountability. And going to therapy is about accountability, about your own life and how to maneuver it. But you think a therapist is going to be able to maneuver through that? No, it's such a hard thing to diagnose. I think it's impossible to like, truly diagnose a narcissist unless you personally know that person and be like, you know what, fuck, maybe you are a narcissist. Just if you have the knowledge of what a narcissist is, you'll know easily what a person is. A therapist only gets what, maybe an hour with you a week. How will they know your traits every day? You know, only your partner, only your friends, people you spend the most time with, those are the people that will know. So, to summarize that, yeah, it's easy to call anybody a narcissist. And I truly believe we all have a trait of narcissism in us. But like I said at the beginning, if you use it against other people, to your own advantage, to hurt people, you're a piece of shit. Straight up. And the best thing I could tell you guys is just go through life very carefully and understand who you're dealing with. Because there's people out there that do not care what harm they do to you. And typically these are narcissists, the ones that lack empathy. The world is all about them. Those type of narcissists. So just be careful. And like I said before, if there's an experience that you've had or currently have, and you see these traits in somebody you have a decision to make. You have to think about that decision of if you want to stay longer or you just want to walk away. And usually the best answer is just to walk away, especially if they have these traits that are very bad. Especially if you've, consulted with your partner and actually committed to have a talk with that person and be like, you know what, we should work it out. And if they give you the runaround, like they always do, it is not worth it. They're going to keep doing it, trust me. And pay attention to that 2 week, 4 week. When a person says that they're going to change, they change fully for like at least a month. And at that point, you'll be like, okay, maybe they are serious. But if they can't make it past that 2 week period and they're back to their shit after 2 weeks, yeah, they don't give a fuck. They're going to keep doing it. You're going to have that same talk next month and then next year and then fucking 10 years from now. It's crazy how time flies. And then the next thing you know, you wasted your life with somebody that you could have been a lot better off with somebody else that actually wanted to give you their best, just like you did. So just think about that. How much time are you going to waste? For those that are meeting new people and single and, going into this crazy ass fucking dating world that we live in right now, just be very careful. Very careful, because there's narcissists everywhere. I think we all have that trait. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all have that trait. And understand the ones that are toxic, the ones that take, the ones that hurt. Those are the ones that are harmful, the ones that are going to hurt you, the ones that are going to break your heart. So if you could catch it very early on, do it, but be wary. Don't fucking fall in love with the fucking attraction level. Just be strong and maneuver through life in a better way, a more mature one. And just do your best, honestly, because we live in a generation right now where people hurt each other over and over, and people do not want to change. And why is that? Because of social media. And you have to be very careful with this generation where people walk away from relationships very easily. And that's because of social media. Most people, they run to social media. As the studies here and the stuff that I talked about, there's narcissists that fall into that category of running to social media because they want that validation. They want to get validated by everybody and anybody. It could be fucking anybody. Just for them to get their fucking quick hit of dopamine, and that's it. That's how they live. Doesn't matter who they are. Could be a fucking garbage person, fucking be somebody at McDonald's. It'd be fucking anybody, and they're gonna feel like they're on top of the world. But people like that are fucking mentally broken. Because those people are the ones that use others for their own benefit. And I'm going to dive down a little bit quicker on this because I'm about to end this episode. But um, yeah, these type of people will jump from person to person, and they are very good at putting a mask. They're very loving, very nurturing, very caring. They'll be this fucking perfect, like, vision, or this perfect version of themselves. You're gonna be like, holy fuck, this person is amazing. This person is all I ever asked for. But that person that you're dealing with, being a narcissist, they're only doing that just for their own need, their own validation, whatever they want to use from you. It could be any type of occasion, but that's what they do. Like, they'll give you like this fucking perfect fucking image of who they are. But with time, give it a month, two, maybe even a year, and they show their true colors of who they always were. Pretty much a piece of fucking shit. And it sucks because at that point, you're just left there empty. It's like, what the fuck did I just go through? This person manipulated me into believing that they were this type of person. And you fell in love with that type of version of themselves. But it was never real. And that fucking hurts. And I'm sure you guys have experienced some type of hurt like that. And if you haven't, that's what I'm saying. That's why we're here. I want to teach you guys how to pick up on these traits very early on or while in a relationship. But quit giving the benefit of the doubt if that person doesn't decide to change. If you bring up the situation and be like, you know what, why do you do this? And they get defensive, walk away. A person that really wants to willingly make the relationship work, they're going to respond with a more rational answer instead of getting defensive. That's how a relationship works. How does a relationship ever work if the other person's getting defensive and putting everything on you? And that's a dangerous narcissist, because those are the ones that you give your all. You build this version of who they are in your head, and yeah, next thing you know, they're the complete opposite. You're like, who the fuck is this person? So just be wary, guys. Like always, I tell you guys this from the bottom of my heart, that I want to help you guys out as much as possible. I know you guys have been sending me messages, and I've been getting questions now, of relationship advice. And I'm not a licensed therapist or nothing like that, but due to my experience and stories that I hear, and because I wanted to become a better version of myself, I've been able to maneuver and learn and do research on how to become a better man in this culture that we live in today. It's all through a lot of trials and errors, a lot of it. And if I could give you guys a little token of my life, just for advice, and you guys could take that, and hopefully it makes a difference. Because we're all going through something. We are all dealing with people. And it sucks that most of the time it's our own fucking partner. Most of the time it's somebody that we say we love. And it sucks that it has to happen that way. But if you're knowledgeable and you actually understand what you want in life, and you love yourself enough to walk away from a situation that's not going to give you the best results, you're going to do good in life. Especially when you know how to walk away, which many people do not. They stay in relationships for stupid reasons. And I hate saying it, but one of them is the kids. And that one, you're just teaching your kids your behaviors. You're showing them what love isn't. I talked about that in the last episode, I think, and it only does more worse for the kid. I think the kid will be much more happier in a house where two parents are more happier than ever. Not in a house where mom and dad are yelling at each other and they're not showing love and affection. Like I talked about in this episode early on, a child learns a lot of their own trauma very early on. They learn a lot of things early on, and if it's trauma, you're only going to do them worse. And these are the results of it. Just like I said it right now, all these explanations with the research, this study that they did, I mean, it's a good one, and it explains it very thoroughly. But that's why I say a lot of people that stay in marriages for the kids, it's one of the stupidest ideas ever. I'm just gonna be honest. It is one of the most stupidest ones because you're only doing the kid more more of a harm than good. You're showing them what love isn't, and they're gonna think that that's normal. So I think we need to be a lot better prepared mentally, um, for the future with anything that we all go through. Good decision making that you guys could be thinking about. The stuff that I've been explaining. I hope it makes you think a little bit about what you want to do. Moving forward, if it is a relationship that you're dealing with and you're stuck in the decision of walking away or staying. But life is too short, like I said. So just want to end it with this, guys, and I thank you all for who made it this far in the episode and went through it all. And it means a lot, you guys listening and giving the feedback. I always appreciate it. It motivates me. I've been getting a lot of DMs of how I've been helping people out. I didn't even know. So it means a lot. I think we are all here to help each other out. And this is my way to help you guys out through the experiences that I've had, research that I've known, and I hope it does something good. So you guys take care, love yourselves, respect yourselves, and as always, much love. Luna out.